Okay, and we are live. Can everyone hear me? If you guys can hear me, please say that you can hear me in the comments right below this video. So everyone, Happy New Year. I am so excited to be here with you today. As you guys know, this is a brand new webinar for us. It's called 2017, the Year of You. I've had such a good time putting together this material, and I can't wait to get started. My only fear is that I have, of course, prepared way, way too much material for an hour-long webinar, so we have got to get going. But yeah, so I'm so excited to meet you guys all. It's been amazing. I've been reading all the comments. You are unbelievably inspiring. We're going to be talking more about that later. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn up my slides. And also, I should just say, sorry, my apologies. I'm getting ahead of myself. If we haven't met before, my name is Autumn Bernier. I am the founder and CEO of Skill Crush. Yeah. And on that note, let's just get started with these webinar slides and dive into the material because there's a lot to cover. So, all right, here we are. I'm just going to double check that everyone can hear me and see me. We had some webinar issues last time we did this. Oh, wow. A lot more comments. This is amazing. Okay, guys, you are amazing. Okay, cool. So, yes, fantastic. Yes, all right. Thank you, Allison. She says I sound great. I really appreciate the positive reinforcement. It means a lot. Okay, cool. So why are you here? You're here for a really simple reason, and that's because you're ready to make a major career change and you want to do it fast, and you want to learn how to do it using technology. So I have been reading through your guys' big goals, and they are absolutely amazing. They're so inspiring. I can't even tell you how much it means to me that you shared your big goals with me. They're just fantastic. We are at last count at over 800 responses. There are so many of you guys. There's so much good energy. We're all ready. I think, 2016 was a hard year for a lot of people. And I think we're all looking forward to 2017, and we're going to make this the year that we make it happen. So just a small, tiny little sampling of some of the amazing goals that I read about. We heard from people who want to launch a graphic design business with their sister. It's super exciting and awesome. We've got people who want to become a professional front-end developer. That's fantastic. We're totally going to talk to you today about how you can do that. We heard from people who want to make $200 or $300 extra a month. A completely realistic goal. I think you can actually do that within a couple months, and we're going to be talking about that today. I heard from someone who is looking to make $60,000. That is actually a very reasonable salary for a beginning sort of junior level tech job. So that's awesome. There are people here who are looking to get a job that allows them to be creative. This is fantastic. One of the things I love about technology and working in the tech industry is that it's so creative. We heard from people who want to feel proud of their accomplishments. Who doesn't want to feel proud of their accomplishments? And then there's people who want to work from anywhere in the world and get paid for their creativity. It's a really cool, fantastic goal. And then there's some people here who want to become WordPress developers. So anyways, what's exciting to me about these goals is that they're amazing and inspirational. And I also think that they are totally doable. And that is what we're going to be talking about today in this webinar. How do you do it? What is the plan? How are you going to make sure that this isn't just something that you wrote down in some online form, but is actually a change that you make in your life this year? So a little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, I feel like I don't even need to tell you guys this because I see that there are already dozens and dozens of comments. I was having a really good time right before the webinar reading through your guys' comments and saying hey, and I look forward to doing more of that. So I definitely want to make sure that you guys participate. This is a participatory event. Just like, the action plan is going to require some engagement from you. So if you just any questions, comments, anything that comes to mind during the course of this webinar, please go ahead and post it in the Facebook comment widget right below this video. And, I'm going to be taking questions during the webinar. We're going to have a couple of Q&A breaks. And also my team is in the comments. They're going to be responding to your comments. And after the webinar, we're going to make sure that everyone's questions are answered, because we want to make sure that everyone, gets what they need out of this webinar. So another thing for you to know is that we're going to be giving away an amazing, we're going to be giving away 3 blueprints. And so the way this is going to work is we're going to give away a blueprint early on in this webinar. We're going to give another one away at the end of the webinar, and then we're going to give another 3rd one away after the webinar. And the way that you enter the giveaway is that you just need to tweet, Instagram, or Facebook your takeaways using the hashtag #YearOfYou. And also, just so you know, nobody's going to leave this webinar empty-handed. There is going to be a special bonus offer that is only for webinar attendees, and I'm going to be talking about that at the end of the webinar, so make sure to stay tuned to hear about the bonus offer and how you can take advantage of it. So yes, it's a totally free class, so get excited to hear about it. So to begin, I would love to have you introduce yourself. Where are you joining us from today? What do you hope your life will look like on January 1st, 2018? And what are you hoping to accomplish this year? So give us a shout. Tell us where you're coming from. It's been incredible. We did a webinar on Thursday, and we had people from all over the world, which was so much fun. So we'd love to hear where you're coming from, and make sure that, and also hear, what you're hoping to accomplish this year. So, okay. And we are actually, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give away the first blueprint right this second. And let me give you let me just pull this up. My team has selected someone. So I want to congratulate Ella Vincent, whose Twitter handle is BookGirlChicago. She is the first winner of our big webinar giveaway. So congratulations, Ella Vincent. So let's all congratulate her, but don't despair. For the rest of you, there's going to be another 2 blueprints given away. So, okay, I'm trying to not go too fast, but at the same time, I'm like, gotta keep moving. We've got a lot of material to cover. So let me talk a little bit about the inspiration for this webinar. Why did we decide to do this webinar? Because it is a brand new webinar and we've never done it before. And the reason for it is that I recently learned that basically job searches spike like crazy in January of every year. So what you're looking at is the 5-year trend of Google searches for the word jobs. And it's so funny because what happens in December is we all get busy with the holidays. We're not thinking about a new job. And then come January, we're like, oh crap, it's a new year. It's time to make some changes. We're inspired by New Year's resolutions and we're like, let's look for a new job. So, and then it's funny, I'm curious, I don't know, I think this must be like September or something like that where the second spike is. But regardless, obviously, we can all look for new jobs at any time of year, but it seems like most of us are thinking about this in January. So I really wanted to take advantage of that momentum and, have a discussion with you guys about what it means to get a new job, what it takes to get a new job, and really think critically about what is a realistic plan to make that happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about, because the thing is that it's really nice and exciting in January to set these New Year's resolutions and say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to get a new job. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to get more flexibility. But, then it's all about sort of, the rubber hitting the road. And do we really have a realistic plan for how we're going to make that happen and how we're going to sustain working on that plan over the course of the next, 3 to 6 to 9 months that we're going to need to really put that plan into action. So what we're going to talk about in this webinar is we're going to talk about the 12 key moves that you need the 12 key moves you need to take to change careers. And we're going to break them down month by month. So we're going to talk about what you need to do in month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4 to make sure that you stay on track. We're going to talk about what new skills you'll need to maximize your earning potential. We're going to talk about how to start making money with your new skills ASAP. We're going to talk about how to get ready to start applying for jobs and how to know when you are ready. And I saw that was a question that's already asked in the comments. It's a really big question. I totally understand. And we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about where to find these absolutely perfect for you jobs. Where do you find them? And how do we make sure that you get the job, right? Because it's well and good to find some cool job listing, but what's the point of that if you're not actually able to land the job? So I also want you guys to know that during this presentation, I'm going to be going over a lot of material, and I'm also going to be including a lot of resources. And I do encourage you, of course, to write things down, because I find that that's really helpful in terms of just remembering things. But I want you to know that you don't need to worry about writing something down, if you miss it or something like that, because I'm going to be sending you a package of materials after this webinar, and you're going to get it automatically if you sign up for the webinar. And what it's going to include is this presentation that you're looking at right now. And we're also going to be providing you with a PDF with links to every single resource that we talk about today, which is going to include a whole ton of amazing ultimate guides that literally, it's like more information than anyone could reasonably work through, at least in, maybe given a year you could get through it all, but plus a bunch of stuff like, resume templates, cover letters. I mean, there's so much good stuff. It's insane. It was amazing for me as I was putting together to just realize how much stuff there is out there for you guys and resources if you need it. So yes, and then of course we're going to this package will also let you know about, reinforce and let you know about any of the very special blueprint offer that we have put together for you guys. So all those details will be coming your way right after this webinar. All right, so with that in mind, I just want to put a little caveat, which is just remembering that, the path is not linear, right? So I think we all have this idea, like, you do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. They all are on set time frames. It's all really predictable. And although, like, to a certain degree, these things are predictable. And, it is interesting, for us here at Skill Crush, because we work with so many students, and we see we see thousands of students go through our program and make these career changes. And there are absolutely patterns. And there are sort of benchmarks of, like, most students can get to freelancing by this time and that kind of thing. And that's what I'll be talking about. But of course, every person's journey is an individual journey. Everyone's coming to this with a different set of circumstances, a different, background. And it's just important to recognize, like, your journey isn't going to be the same journey as somebody else. And that's totally okay, right? Like, it's all about, I'm going to provide you with a blueprint and sort of a step-by-step action plan, but it is important for you to sort of take a look at it and think critically and say, like, I think I'm going to need a little more time for this part, or I could skip this part, or, that kind of thing. Like, this is really about you getting this as a blueprint and then really customizing it to what makes sense for you. That said, and this is one of those questions I get a lot, like, what can I expect in terms of how long this is going to take me? And so at Skill Crush, what we work, or like the people that we work with, are students generally who are working full time while trying to make a career transition. So all of the estimates and time frames that I give is premised on the idea that you're not, spending all of your time learning. If you were to spend all of your time learning, this could go quite a bit faster. But what we see instead is that we see sort of the trajectory we see most of our students kind of, or the path that we see them follow, is that it takes them about 3 months to get to the point where they start freelancing and making some extra money. It takes another 3 months for them to sort of build up enough experience, a portfolio of work, gain a little bit more confidence in their skills, get some more advanced skills under their belt, and then and really get to the point where they feel ready to start looking for work. And so this is something we're going to talk about a little bit more in terms of this question of, how do you know when you're ready to look for work? So around month 6 is when most of our students both are and start to feel ready to look for work. And I distinguish those because, they're not always like in sync. I think, sometimes, especially for people who are just getting started, they often overestimate the amount of skills that they need in order to be qualified to look for work. Around month 9, they usually are starting to kind of, it takes a little while to get all your stuff in order and to line up interviews and stuff like that. So around month 9 is when we start to see, like, students actually get work. And then the last 3 months of the sort of this 12-month path that we're talking about today is really about acclimating to your new job, understanding what it means to work in tech, understanding what it means to work on a tech team. And these are all things that we're going to talk about in much greater detail. So let's just begin with month 1. So month 1 is called Build the Foundation, or Build Your Foundation. So it's all about getting started building your foundation, making sure that you are familiar with the tech industry, and really understand, what the heck it is that you're getting yourself into. So the goal of month one is really just to get familiar with all this stuff. So if you're already familiar, then this is a good example of like maybe you zoom through month one. But for those of you who are a little bit newer, I just want to acknowledge that it takes a little while to get up to speed, right? So, maybe like you got to learn all the lingo. You have to sort of understand, what do all these terms mean that people are throwing around? Like, what are all these job titles? What does it mean to work in a tech industry? What does it mean to code? Like, all of these questions. And what we like to encourage students to do at this juncture is, in addition to familiarizing themselves with all of the sort of language of tech, which is, new and weird and totally specific, they also need to, we also encourage you to start learning about the basics of web and user experience design. And the reason for this is because although, user experience design and web design are disciplines, and we'll talk more about that, how you can specialize in them, but they really are something that everyone needs to have a core understanding of, because it's really just the study of what the web is and how it works, right? And that's really, in order to really build web products, websites and web applications to begin with, you really just understand like what they're all about. What do they look like? What are sort of the conventions? What are the things that make the web unique? So in month one, what you really want to do is you kind of just want to take like a slow, gradual approach. You want to start by attending webinars like this one. So you're doing a great job already. You want to sign up for some tech newsletters. So, if you haven't already, sign up for the Skill Crush newsletter. There's a whole bunch more amazing tech newsletters. You just want to start browsing things, reading up on trends. I think it's really easy when you do this to get really overwhelmed. So you don't want to kind of go too crazy with it. Don't fall down any rabbit holes, but just sort of generally start to like immerse yourself in the tech industry. You want to learn about some different job roles in tech. You want to start to think about, what is it that you need to learn? What languages, what skills, all of which, luckily for you, I'm going to tell you in this webinar. So that's great. And then, you want to start thinking about, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm really going to engage. I'm going to, make a plan, and I'm going to sign up for a class. So whether that is an online class or an in-person class, you really want to take action and say, like, this is happening. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to actually, commit to learning this. So some great resources for you. We have an amazing blog post called 35 Email Newsletters to Boost Your Career in Tech, which will fill your inbox with amazing information about tech. We have a great blog post on how to learn the most in-demand job skills. We have a great blog post that you'll find super helpful. It's called 10 Tech Careers You Can Get Without a Computer Science Degree. I know that this is another big concern for a lot of our students, is worry about, can I really do this when I don't have a computer science degree? If you haven't already, definitely sign up for the Skill Crush 10-day bootcamp. It's 10 days. You will get started learning HTML and CSS, and you will learn all of the major tech terms that you need to know. And of course, when you're ready, you should absolutely enroll in the Skill Crush Blueprint. We'll be talking more about that a little bit later, but that is really, a great step for you in terms of actually committing and sort of making a plan to learn the skills. So in month two, this is when you want to begin crafting an online presence. So a core part of working in the tech industry is to have a presence online, right? This is kind of like your calling card. It's it's our 21st century version of the business card. It's sort of like, you can't really expect to work in tech if you can't be found online. We have a lot of material, and I know Kara, our class instructor, our class manager talks about this a lot, about how, one of the things that people do, and there's reference checks, but there's also sort of just like, hey, are you a person on the web who does cool things? I'm going to Google you and find out. And this is really, you want to start to build up that online presence. And I think it's really common for students to think that they have to wait until they have the perfect portfolio, or they have all their skills, or whatever it is, that list in your head of things that you have to do first before you can start to do this. But really, you want to do this as soon as possible, because the sooner you get started, the more momentum you can build. So yes. So what you need to do is you need to commit to your new plan, and you need to make it public via social media and a brand new portfolio website. And that's really your goal for month 2. So in month 2, I encourage you to start learning HTML and CSS. Those are the 2 coding languages that you need to know in order to build a website. And then you want to use those skills that you are learning to build yourself a website. And I know this can sound really intimidating, especially if you haven't ever done it before, but your portfolio website to begin with can be really, really simple, right? Like, it's like, obviously in month 2, you probably don't have any work to show. And that's totally okay. Your portfolio website can just be a single page. And you just have to think about it like your portfolio website itself becomes an example of the work that you can do. And honestly, like, simple, beautiful work is awesome, especially when it comes to the web. There's so many web pages that are so cluttered and horrible. So in a lot of ways, having it really simple is really nice. Like, I know a lot of people who have had super fancy portfolio websites and then been like, screw this, it's too much. I'm going back to something really simple. And then what you'll do is, as you get more work, you'll build it up. So the other thing you want to do is you want to revise all of your social media profiles to say that you're a developer. And I know, or a developer or a designer, or a budding technologist, whatever it is you want to say. And I know this is probably very scary for some people, like the idea of announcing this to the world. But this is a core part of building up your reputation, of letting people know that you are now doing this work, which is going to become really important when you want to start freelancing, which is going to be something we address in month 3. You really have to start to market yourself. And part of marketing yourself is saying to the world, this is what I'm doing. I'm here. I'm making it happen. I'm learning as I go. Like, watch me do it. And, so these are some examples of really cool student portfolios that Skillcraft students have made. And they're simple but elegant and beautiful. I love this one from Allison. She's a web developer, self-starter, knitting fanatic, creator, mom of 2. It's important to remember, we bring our whole personality to our work. And these are 2 examples of students who have sort of professed that they are learning to code and becoming technologists in their social media profile. So again, like, we're not talking about transforming your whole social media profile, being like code, code, code all the time. But what I love about, Tech Girl Go here is that she makes it very clear, like, this is Rachel, and she is learning, and she's learning how to code. She's all about empowering women in tech, and this is clearly a big focus of hers. It's not her solo focus, but it's a big one. And I just think this is a great example. And she brings some personality to it, and she's going to bring us along on this learning journey, and it's part of the process. Blake is another guy who's really awesome, who was a great student of ours, has a beautiful portfolio website. And I think he did a really good job. He's a Florida State alum, he's a Chicago resident, he's a web development newbie. And honestly, like, Blake is totally kicking butt. So I think, if Blake can do it, so can you. So some great resources for this stage is we got the beginner's guide, what to put in your tech portfolio. For those of you who want to take a little bit of a deep dive into that, we've got all about how to create a portfolio we've got 17 tips for creating perfect portfolio. And then I love this one, which is 5 tips for writing a Twitter bio that will get people to follow you. So this is sort of starting to think about, okay, like, part of my process has to be marketing myself. Which brings us to month 3. So in month 3, we really encourage you to start freelancing. And again, this is going to be a theme. A lot of these things that we're telling you to do, we're going to be encouraging you to do them before you're going to feel ready to do them. So your goal in month 3 is to start making money with your new skills. And in particular, we want you to land your first freelance client, even if it's just a $100 project. And I know that there was a question about this, how do you compete and how do you charge for work without, like, being sort of getting stuff that's so, like, basement prices, right? And obviously, I just want to acknowledge that a $100 project is, like, you can't make a living doing $100 projects, or chances are maybe you can make a little bit of extra money, but it's too little to make money on. So we're going to talk about that in a second, to make an actual living on. So in month 3, what you want to learn is you want to finish learning HTML and CSS. And then you want to start learning Git. And Git is something that if you're not, if you're not super immersed in the tech industry, you probably haven't heard about it. But basically what it is it's a piece of software, and it's a version control software. And what it does is it allows you to keep track of any changes that you make to your code. And more importantly, in the future, it'll be a critical skill for you in order to work with other technologists. So we put a lot of emphasis at Skill Crush on our students learning Git. So in month 3, you're going to want to identify good potential clients. This can be, family, friends, people you know through work, people in your community, people you find online. Like, it really just depends. And I'm sure that a lot of you have questions about how to identify good clients, and this is a huge topic that we have literally done like webinars, full 1-hour webinars just on this topic. So I'm going to have to sort of gloss over this for now and instead give you guys a lot of resources things that go into much greater detail. But once you've identified these good potential clients, then what you want to do is you want to reach out. You want to use, reach out via email, phone, in person, or via social media. We've had a lot of students have a lot of luck just by posting on social media. Hey, I'm looking for a client. Do you need a website? That kind of thing. Like, one of the things that is interesting, I think, for a lot of people as they go into the tech industry is that it can feel like you don't know anyone who would hire you. But then once you sort of put out there, hey, I'm a developer, I'm learning this new skill, I'm looking for clients, people really come out of the woodwork. And in fact, for a lot of students, their experience is like, once they put it out there, they get more work than they can handle. And like I said, start small. Don't be afraid. Like, it's really important at this stage that you do charge. So I do really want to push you to not do projects for absolutely free. And the reason for that is both that it's important, it's important to make money, but it's also, it's an important part of the learning process to get used to charging for your work. And it's also going to have a really big impact on how quickly you start charging a reasonable rate. So something that I see happen time and again is something that we call the snowball effect with our students. And so this is basically what we see happen. This is what's going to happen. Like, I'll just tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. You're going to find, let's say, like a friend, maybe a friend of a friend who is looking for a website. And you're going to say, hey, like, I'm learning. I'd like to build you a website, and I'm only going to charge you $100 for it because I'm just learning, and this is, part of the process for me. And they're going to say, $100, that's amazing. I would love for you to make me a website for $100. And then you're going to start working on that website, and they're going to, what you're going to realize very quickly is that you have a really valuable skill, and you're doing something that's really valuable for them. And it's a lot of work, and $100 is nowhere near enough money in terms of the amount of work that you're having to put into it. And what that's going to do for you is that is going to make you feel really emboldened to charge way, way more than $100 for the next project. And what we see with our students who start with this, $100 website is that most of them jump to charging at least $500 to $1,000 to sometimes $2,000 or more for their very next project. And that's when you're really starting to make a wage that actually could support you, right? So if you could line up 3 $2,000 projects a month, like, that's starting to be close to $60,000 a year, equivalent to a $60,000 a year salary. Obviously, that's $72,000 a year, but if you account for taxes and all that crazy stuff. So some great resources for month 3 is we have a good blog post called "You Need a Freelance Job Now." Send these 5 emails with exact email copy that you can send. We've got 25 top sites for finding freelance jobs you want. So this is another question we get a lot. Okay, great. I'm supposed to freelance, but where the heck am I supposed to go to find this freelance work? So we've got you covered. We've got 25 sites for where you can find freelance work. There's a great blog post called 25 Podcasts to Launch Your Freelance Career in 2016, but I think it'll still apply in 2017. We've got 99 insanely useful resources for freelancers. Super awesome blog post with an insane amount of resources. I'm telling you, these resources are going to become a total rabbit hole. So use them responsibly. We have the Ultimate Guide to Transitioning into Freelance and the Ultimate Guide to Going Freelance, which are 2 amazing, beautiful, ultimate guides that you're going to love. Okay. We're at half time on only a month 4. I'm a little nervous about going over here. But month 4 is all about specializing. So after you've sort of built this foundation, you have started, you have started to learn and, build your presence and all of that and started freelancing, then it's really time for you to specialize. So often people use this analogy of a T, which is that you want to sort of have a broad foundation and then sort of go deep into one specific area. And in particular, what we encourage our students to really do is decide, are you interested in specializing in web design or web development? So web design is, all about sort of what websites look like, what their brand is like, the identity, the colors, the user experience, and all of that. Web development, on the other hand, can vary greatly. So you can be a front-end developer, back-end developer, full-stack developer, like mobile developer. There are a lot of variations, but in general, your job is to write the code that powers the website. So in month 4, at this point, you will have learned, everyone will have learned HTML and CSS and Git. And so if you decide to be a developer, then you want to go into responsive web development, which is web development for mobile and tablets. And if you're a designer, then you want to start to think about responsive web design. Responsive and mobile is just a requirement for everyone who's working on the web at this point, because at this point, the statistics are crazy. It's like at least 50% of web browsing is happening on mobile devices, and it is growing really, really fast. So in month 4, what you want to do is you want to focus on your chosen path, and you want to start researching what web developers or web designers do. So you want to get more familiar with what it is that you're getting yourself into. We have an enormous amount of resources for month 4 because there's a bunch of resources for developers and designers. I don't even know if it makes sense for me to go through them all, but get excited. Whichever way you want to go, this will give you a lot of information. And the most important thing probably to call out is there is this blog post, which is how to decide if you should be a web designer or a developer, which can really help you to answer this question. Although I do want to, make a note, which is that I wouldn't encourage you to try to make this choice before month 4. So I really think that, sometimes our impression of things from the outside before we get into them can be a little bit inaccurate. So I really encourage you to sort of absolutely do your research, get familiar, but don't think that you need to make this decision ahead of time. I know that that's a big, hurdle for a lot of students that we talk to, and because they're sort of at this point where they're like, okay, I want to sign up for a class, but I don't know, should I do, this one or that one? Should I commit to being a developer or a web designer? And I just really say, at first, you really just want to be a generalist. And if you're sort of struggling with that question, we're happy to talk you through that. All right, so we've gotten to month 5. Are you guys all still with me? I want to check all the comments and make sure that, I'm not going too fast or talking nonsense. But the goal, okay, cool. I'm seeing some great, okay, very cool. All right, seems like you guys are all still with me, fantastic. So month 5 is all about extending your network. Okay, cool. And I see that Hillary is sending me some questions, which I will get to in just a second. We're going to take a little Q&A break. But so for month 5, your goal is really to extend your network. And this is, this is something that I know also can feel very intimidating when you are new to tech. And I think it's so, we have so many students who come to us, especially maybe who aren't living in a major metropolitan area, and this is a big career change for them. And I think it can really feel very isolating and I don't know anyone in tech, other than this webinar that I've attended, this is my only connection to that whole crazy world of technology. And again, this is where, again, just to emphasize, we're talking about month 5 here, right? This is not something that you're going to do tomorrow. That said, the other thing is what you're going to find by month 5 is that you will already have started to do this work. So between, signing up for a class, reading newsletters, like you're going to have a much better sense just participating in this webinar, right? This alone has started the process for you of networking and meeting people. You know, by month 5, for example, if you enroll in a Skill Crush Blueprint, you will have access to our Slack community of alumni who are amazing. And there's literally thousands of people in there who would love for you to be a part of their network, and they share tips and they help each other get work and all these amazing things. So there are so many strategies that you can use to start to build up your network. So in month 5 at this point, people on the development track should be learning JavaScript, and designers should be learning mobile and responsive development. So they learned mobile and responsive design the month before, and now they'll be working on development. So during month 5, what I would like to see you do is I want you to attend at least one in-person networking event, so a hackathon, a meetup, a workshop, and explore online networking opportunities. So you want to join Slack groups, you want to do some open source work, you want to, you know, submit your work into some design competitions. Okay, so some great resources that we have available for you for networking. We have a great guide called The Ultimate Guide to Non-Sleazy Networking. Nobody wants to feel sleazy. There's another blog post that's awesome about, you know, if you hate networking, here are 27 tips to make it less painful. And then some awesome organizations. Meetup is really great in terms of finding stuff. And then also Girl Develop It is a really fun organization that hosts classes and workshops all over the country. So it's definitely something you guys should take a look at. Okay, so now in month 6, this is really where you are ready to start looking for work. And again, you know, this is all a process. Let me take a sip of my coffee. So, you know, this isn't necessarily like start applying for jobs right away, but it's just to start exploring. Start to understand what's available to you. You know, what's going on. Start researching job opportunities and companies that you'd like to apply for. Sort of start to think about, what kind of work environment do I want, right? So up until this point, you've been very focused on the skills part of it. What kind of job do I want? What kind of skills do I need? But then you want to start to think about, you know, what's my day-to-day going to be like? Like, you know, what kind of work do I want to do? What kind of people do I want to work with? So at this point, developers should be focused on a backend programming language like Ruby or PHP, and designers should be thinking about branding and identity design. So in month 6, I want you to determine what type of company you want to work at. I want you to think about what kind of industry you want to work in. And I want you to really sort of hone in on what kind of job do you want to apply for. So what's amazing about tech is that it really isn't an industry onto itself. Like there definitely are jobs that sort of fit into that traditional tech industry, but really tech knows no industry, right? It exists in every industry. So, you know, do you want to work at a tech startup? Do you want to work in nonprofits? Do you want to work in media, defense, healthcare, banking, the arts, education, law, hospitality, science, manufacturing? I mean, really, this list could go on forever. There are so many different opportunities. And you need to also think about, do you want to work at a small company, right? Do you want to work at a company like Skill Crush that's like 30 employees? Or do you want to work at a big corporation? Like, do you want to have, you know, greater stability and, you know, maybe trade that for some hierarchy, but lots of perks? Do you want to work at a nonprofit? Do you want to work at a for-profit, right? So this is a good question. Like, what kind of company do you want to work at? Do you want money and revenue and stuff like that? Or do you want something that's more mission-driven? Obviously, there's companies that are both, right? They're both, you know, there's nonprofits that make money. There's for-profits that are mission-driven. There's all kinds. Do you want to work remote? Really important question. You know, fortunately for you, if you're interested in this, remote jobs are on the rise. Then you want to think about, what kind of job do you want? Do you want to apply for a junior web designer position or a junior user experience? Or maybe you want to work as a webmaster, do a little bit of everything. Maybe you want to work as a junior web developer or front-end developer, or something more specific like a WordPress developer, right? These are all big decisions that you're going to have to start to think about and make. So we have a ton of resources for this stage in the game. We've got the anatomy of a tech job listing, which is a really cool ultimate guide. We've got this great site or blog post called the 25 best sites for finding remote work. So if you're specifically interested in finding remote work. We love themuse.com for great job opportunities. Same with Idealist. Those are two really awesome places to find great jobs, especially for people who are more junior. LinkedIn is also really great, and so is Authentic Jobs. And then I really wanted to make sure to call out our partner, Power to Fly. So Power to Fly is an amazing company. It was founded by a woman named Milena Berry or two women, Milena Berry and Catherine Zaleski. Milena used to be the CTO at an organization called Avaz, which does all kinds of really cool political activism kind of work, also all remote. Catherine has an amazing background. She was one of sort of the early, I don't know if she was exactly on the founding team or just a very early employee of the Huffington Post, but she played a really big role in building up the Huffington Post, has a deep media background. And basically they got together and created this company, Power to Fly. And what Power to Fly does is they are a tech recruiting company that works to place candidates in jobs exclusively at companies that value diversity and inclusion. So basically what they're looking to do is that they're looking to really broaden, increase and promote diversity in the tech industry and create partnerships with companies who are really committed to that same mission and place people in those jobs. So what's amazing about working with them is that you are guaranteed to end up, if you end up sort of working with them, being placed by them, and can trust that they have made sure this is a company that really values diversity and inclusion and thinks about things like lifestyle and flexibility and work-life balance, and that those are really important to those companies because that is what Power to Fly really values. So if you're interested in doing that, and I really recommend, this is a great step for you to take as part of month 2, Craft Your Presence. So create a profile on powertofly.com, and you can start to browse job opportunities. That would be part of month 6, and then start applying for jobs with companies that value your aspirations. So we're also, I will definitely be sharing links to Power to Fly as part of the resources that we're going to be providing. And in addition to that, we also are going to be sending out a bunch of job listings that they currently have available. So now we're going to take a Q&A break. This has been a lot of material. How are you guys all doing? I'm excited to take a look at all of the questions that you've been asking. All right. Wow, there are so many comments, 204 comments. This is absolutely amazing. Okay, so let me dive into a couple. Let me take a sip of water. So I see a question here, which is how to know when you're ready to make that jump. Okay, sorry, Hillary is sending me questions. So how to know when you're ready to make the jump? This is a really complicated question. And it's okay. So it's like one of those things I feel like I always have a couple of answers to this. One is that it's complicated. I think there is a base level of knowledge that you need to have in order to be able to even sort of entertain the idea of applying for jobs. And what I would say for that is that you need to know HTML and CSS. You need to know Git. And after that, you want to kind of have one more specialized skill that is kind of your calling card. So that can really vary, right? So it depends on what kind of job you're applying for. That could be you have some web design skills, or it could be, JavaScript or WordPress or something like that. But really, honestly, my honest, more complicated answer to this question is that I think this is a good example of why it's very, very challenging to try to learn this stuff on your own. Because you really need a network and community and sort of people who can help you gauge whether or not you're ready, right? So you need someone who's a little bit more experienced than you, whether that is another student who's learning or an instructor or a mentor or something like that, who can sort of look at your work and say, yeah, you really are ready to do this. Or, here's some things that you can maybe improve on a little bit. I think it's really hard to do that for yourself. That said, if you really, because circumstances are just, that's really what you're looking to do, is to do this on your own. I think to a certain extent, you're just going to have to accept that it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. And what that means is you're going to have to apply for some jobs that you may not be ready for and kind of learn as you go what skills you're missing that they're looking for. And just, sort of embrace that as part of the process, right? And I think that can be really hard because it's really, I think like we're adults and we're used to being good at what we do, and it can be challenging to like not be so good. But I think you just have to just really keep reminding yourself that this is not a reflection of your smarts or your intellect or your, your worth as a person. It's just a reflection of the fact that you're new to this and you're still learning. And as you work through it, you're going to get a better and better sense of what people are looking for and whether you're qualified, and if you're not qualified, how far you are from being qualified. So I hope that helps answer that question. This question of how can I finish a program while I work full time? Yeah, that's super challenging, right? We have a lot of material on productivity. I think, I tend to believe in the approach of like, do a little bit every day, like a little bit is better than nothing, because it kind of keeps you in the game. I think, another thing to think about is that like, don't put so much pressure on yourself in terms of a time frame. Like, obviously you want to, like schedules and deadlines can really help in terms of kind of keeping you on track. But at the end of the day, like, there's no one except for yourself who is putting any sort of, deadline on yourself. So, if you set a goal, like I want to land a new job as a web developer, you can have the target of doing it in the next year or year and a half or something like that, whatever sort of feels reasonable. But I think like as long as you're continuing to make progress, like you shouldn't sort of beat yourself up for not doing it within a certain time frame. Caitlin has this question, which are, what are some of the traits of those who have been most successful using the blueprints transitioning into a new tech career? So this is a really great question, and thank you so much for asking, Caitlin. So I would say that probably like, what we see, and this is why I'm really encouraging you to do these things, and, like we use this as inspiration for this webinar and kind of, the month-by-month action plan. There are definitely key things that we see students do that tend to be most successful. So like, and that's been a really interesting learning process for us, because I think, when we went into this, I think we had a certain idea of what was going to make us successful students, and we've really learned from watching, thousands of students go through the program to really understand like what does work. So, getting up your first website is a super critical step, right? So, students who do that tend to do better, and the sooner you do it, the better you do. Another thing is landing a first project, even if it's a tiny little project, a freelance project. So starting to make money, I think, is incredibly motivating, even if it's a small amount. So we definitely see that as a big marker of success. And another big thing that we see, students who go out and go to in-person events, so whether it's a hackathon or WordCamp or something like that, and start to make friends in the industry. It serves so many purposes. Like, I think it gives you a community of people. It'll help you stay accountable. It'll help you stay on track, and it'll build your network for when the time comes to apply for work. And honestly, like, I think if I were to boil it all down, the thing that students who really tend to succeed have in common is that they may be afraid to get out there, but they don't let that fear hold them back. And I think it's just, especially as an adult who's going back to learn something, I think it's so challenging to sort of accept this position and this experience of like, not knowing what you're doing again. But the more that you can sort of embrace that and embrace kind of putting yourself out there and then like doing it wrong and then learning how to do it right as an absolutely crucial part of getting ahead, the better off you're going to be. So I just did a time check and realized that we are really short on time. So I am going to go back to the presentation because we've got 6 more months to go through. But if you have any more questions, please throw them in the comments. I know my team is already answering questions, and we're going to keep doing that. So on that note, let's go back. Let's talk about month 7. So in month 7, you really need to start to market yourself. And so this is obviously building upon all of the work that you've done through months 1 through 6, but especially in month 2 in terms of getting your portfolio out there and putting up your social media profiles. So you want to market yourself like the superstar candidate that you are. So what you're going to be learning in month 7, developers are going to be focused on WordPress, and designers are going to be focused on visual design. In month 7, you want to polish your resume and cover letters. You want to update your social media and LinkedIn profiles to the most up-to-date information that you have. So in terms of like the kind of role you're going for, your experience that you have to date, any skills that you've built over the last 6 months. And you want to update your portfolio to include all of your freelance projects, because that's really going to be how you demonstrate to employers that you have the skills that you say you have. We have an enormous amount of resources for this stuff. So we have an ultimate guide to the perfect resume, 5 tips for writing a Twitter bio that will get people to follow you, 15 modern design resume templates you can use today. So definitely take a look at that. We have 12 skills to highlight on your remote resume if you're interested in remote work, 10 things your resume needs when applying at startups if you're interested in startups, 9 rookie mistakes that will ruin your resume. Very scary. Make sure you're not making them. And then there's a really good infographic called 23 Quick and Easy LinkedIn Updates to Get Hired Now. All right, so once you are ready and have your resume together and your social media profiles and you've done research on jobs and you're starting to actually apply for jobs. So then in month 8, what you want to do is you want to master the tech interview. So mastering the tech interview, it's not as scary as it sounds. And this goes back to the question that I was answering for Caitlin, which is this question of, you know, what characteristic do students who tend to succeed have? And I think that characteristic of not being afraid to fail is going to be so useful to you in month 8 when you're trying to master the tech interview, because tech interviews, I mean, interviews in general are hard, and this will be your first time interviewing for tech positions, and it is really, really scary. And I think that unfortunately what ends up happening is that a lot of people, because they've never done it before and because they're so scared, they go into it with kind of the wrong mindset, and they don't take advantage. They both, I think, unfortunately, sort of when you're really scared, that can often make it harder for you to do well in the interview. And it also means that you don't necessarily get you don't sort of take advantage of the opportunity that's being afforded to you when you do an interview. So in month 8, you really want to focus on learning about, you know, tech and design interviews. So you want to learn about code tests, whiteboard questions. You know, you want to be able to practice talking about design, or sorry, actually for sample design projects, a lot of design, you know, job interviews will include you doing a sample design project. And you want to get comfortable doing portfolio reviews. So code tests and whiteboard questions. Code tests in general, sometimes if a company is really aggressive, they might make you do it in person. That is somewhat unusual. Sometimes they'll do it where you have to pair a program with someone else. In order to, like, you work with another developer to write some code. And then whiteboard questions. So whiteboard questions are kind of this like famously horrible thing that happens in tech interviews sometimes. And I have to tell you, I've interviewed for a fair amount of tech jobs and I've never had to do a whiteboard question. And in general, I would argue that they're kind of on their way out. There's a lot of data showing that they don't really work that well. And they're kind of just an intimidation tactic. But what a whiteboard question is what they do is they give you a coding challenge and then they make you do it, but on a whiteboard instead of on a computer, which if you have any familiarity programming is like horrible, because often what you do when you're programming is like you try some stuff out, you run it, you see if it runs, and then based on that feedback, like, oh, this doesn't run, it gets this error, whatever, you change what you write. So not having that ability to test things out and debug and, you know, try out something is totally draconian, because it's not realistic, right? Like, you're not writing code day to day on a whiteboard. Anyways, that said, you do have to do them sometimes. And the thing that's important for you to know in this process is that I think that when you're a beginner, it's really easy to the thing that they're testing for here is that you get it right? Like, I think it's like, it seems on its surface, like what's most important is that you like do it, that you come to the right answer. But in reality, what they're looking for is they just want to understand how you think through a problem, right? The test is not whether or not you get the answer. The test is how do you approach a programming problem, and are you able to sort of break it down in the way that you need to break it down? This is something that we focus on a lot at Skill Crush. We teach both Ruby and JavaScript, and we talk a lot about sort of the fundamentals of programming and decomposition and how to sort of address programming problems, because it is a skill that you're going to have to learn. It is different than anything you've done before. It's not like crazy different than anything you've done before, but it is sort of about, you know, adopting a structured way of thinking. Anyways, I'm sort of getting off track, I think, a little bit, but I just want to give you a sense of, you know, what to expect when you're going into an interview and what is going to really matter and what's not going to matter so much. So in month 8, what you want to do is you want to practice, practice, practice. So the good news is that there's a ton of information out there. You can totally search like coding tests, coding challenges, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to, you know, sort of get used to, you know, solving hard programming problems in a non-interview setting so that you're going to be more comfortable doing it in an interview setting. Another thing is, don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't understand what you're being asked to do. So something that I learned early on and was so thankful for was that I was in a meeting. I was a client meeting. We were talking to a pretty famous media company about working with them on some work. And I was there with a more senior developer. And one of the clients, or one of the representatives on the client side, made some comment about like, do you use like blah, 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 you know? And it was like, insert some type of fancy technology that I'd never heard of. And I was like a deer caught in headlights. I was like, I should totally know what this is. I don't know what's happening. Oh, dear God. And the more senior developer just like looked at the client and said, it was like, I have no idea, like, he basically was like, what the heck are you talking about? I have no idea. And it was such a revelation to me, because it was like, oh, and because I knew how talented the senior developer was, right? And so, and I, you know, and he knew how talented he was. And so he was like totally unafraid to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you tell me? Because you're being cryptic and it's annoying. But I think that's something that, you know, as a beginner, like, I totally understand. You go in there and like, it's so hard. Like you can't distinguish between like the name of something that is like some weird software program that maybe like the client made for themselves versus like a software language that everyone and their mother uses, right? But this is why it's really important not to be afraid to ask questions. And the thing is too, when you ask questions, you demonstrate, like in asking questions, you're demonstrating your ability to like encounter a problem and work through it. So you should do that. I really want to encourage you to approach the interview process as another learning opportunity. I know nobody's going to listen to me, but someday I will talk someone into this and they will do it and they will tell me about how much they got out of it, and I can't wait. But here's the thing. I know that it's really scary, and like the thought of going on an interview and not doing well is like the worst, is like, you know, it's like nails on a chalkboard or something. It's like the worst imaginable thing that you could have happen. But honestly, like, if you can approach the interview process as a learning opportunity and take advantage, like what you're getting in an interview is like 30 minutes to an hour with someone in the industry who's in the position of hiring someone, and you have it's like this golden opportunity to like learn, like, what is it that they're looking for? What are the questions that are important to them? Like, what skills you need to beef up? And especially if you start to feel like maybe you're not quite qualified for the job, please take that opportunity to be like, hey, it's possible that I don't quite have the skills that you're looking for, but I'm really curious, like, what is it that you're looking for? How could I build up the skills? Like, take advantage of that opportunity. Don't blow it. And I know that takes a lot of being able to kind of, you know, like emotionally separate yourself from the outcome of the interview. So I understand that it's very challenging what I'm asking you to do, but I really would encourage you. I think like you are going to get to where you need to be so much faster if you're able to do something like that. And then lastly, you want to make sure to follow up with an email. So this is common sense, but worth repeating, right? Like obviously you want to thank people for their time, stay in touch if it doesn't work out, right? They may be hiring again soon, and maybe by that time you will have built up the skills, or just follow up and tell them, hey, I'm really excited about this opportunity. This sounds amazing. I hope it works out. I also want to do a time check, which is that we are totally at an hour. I knew this was going to happen. It's way too much material. I'm going to keep going. We've got 4 more months to get through, but I just want to let you all know that obviously if you have to hop off, that's totally cool. And what's going to happen is that we're going to send you an email with a link to the replay where you can catch the rest of this webinar when you have time. Okay. So on that note, Month 8 resources, we have a ton of stuff about, 13 things you should never say in a tech job interview, the most common interview questions for web designers, 11 tips for stress-free video interviews. If you want a remote job, specific interview questions you need to be able to answer for that. 4 skills to help you stand out in a job interview. We have actual emails that you can send right after your interview. And then, of course, we have an amazing ultimate guide called The Ultimate Guide to Acing Your First Tech Job Interview, which is going to go into much greater detail on everything I just talked about. So definitely take a look at those resources. All right. So now in month 9, we are going to assume that you kicked butt. In month 8, you landed a freaking awesome job, and now you have to start your new job. And the reason why I wanted to make sure to take time to talk about this is because starting a new job, especially when it's the first time you've done the job, is non-trivial, right? This is really, really hard. And this is a really important part of your learning process. And it's going to be really, how you approach this aspect of transitioning your career is going to have a big impact on your longevity in the career, your chances of burnout, your chances of sticking with a job, and just in general, like how you feel. Okay. So getting used to your new job, it's not a small undertaking. This is a really big deal. And I don't say this to scare you. I say this just to let you know that when you get into it and you're like, holy crap, what did I get myself into? You'll think to yourself, oh, I remember, Autumn told me it was going to be like this. This is totally normal. I will get through it and I will be better for it. So in month 9, here's what you need to learn. You need to learn about your new job. You need to learn about your new workplace. You need to learn who's who, right? What is the pecking order at this new company? Who makes things happen? Who signs off on stuff? Who do you talk to when you have a problem? You need to learn the new workflow at your job, which can vary wildly from company to company. And you need to learn about the phases of learning, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. So these are the phases of learning. And the truth of the matter is that we're talking about them now in terms of a job because it's so, I think that, if we have a hard time as adults who are making a career change, if we have a hard time sort of like tolerating the discomfort that comes with learning a new skill as adults, I think we have a particularly hard time transitioning into a new job. So that's why I want to talk about it in this context. So on this axis is, this should be unconsciously incompetent. Or unconsciously competent. So up here is you are unconscious. Down here you are conscious, and then at this part you start off as incompetent, and then you go to competent. So when you begin a new job, like on day 1 or when you're getting your interview or whatever, you are unconsciously incompetent. And what that means is even if you know the skills that are necessary for the job, you don't know anything really about the job, right? You don't know like how the company works, the workflow, the goals, like whatever, X, Y, and Z. So you come in and you're like, I'm so good at HTML and CSS and my JavaScript is on point and this is going to be amazing. And you feel fantastic because you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know. Unfortunately, that's going to change very quickly. And what happens is, starting on day 1, right? Day 1, you feel great. And then like maybe day 2, day 3, you start to be like, oh crap. I don't know anyone's name. I don't know what the goals are. I don't understand the software that they're using. And suddenly you become extremely consciously incompetent. All of a sudden you realize just how incompetent you are. And you're very conscious of it. And it's very, very upsetting. And this is, we call this the trough of sorrow. So the thing that you need to know, in any learning situation, it takes 3 months at least to get through this trough and get back to the point where you are consciously competent, meaning that you are competent, but it takes work to be competent. The end goal is to become unconsciously competent, and I'm sorry that I got this label wrong, but that's this is where you're just good at your job and you don't have to think about it. This consciously competent is where you're good at your job, but you do have to work at it. So it's going to take you 3 months, and that's normal, totally normal. But it's hard. And down here, like I have a mentor and we talk about this a lot. Down here, like you have very little confidence. Everyone goes through this. It doesn't matter. You could be a VP or a CTO. If you get a new job, like maybe you're not incompetent when it comes to the tech skills, but you're incompetent when it comes to the organization. And this can be very challenging. And this is where it's going to be really important that you surround yourself with a network and a community and mentors. And ideally, if your company is well managed, you're going to have someone on the team who's managing you who's going to be able to really help you through this process. But that's not always a given. So in those, if that's not a given, it's really important that you build up that infrastructure for yourself. And this is going to take 3 months. And if you skip it, then you're really lucky. But for most people, we don't get to skip it. And this is where, you're going to get a lot of constructive criticism, and it's going to hurt and all those things. But I just want to encourage you that it's temporary. You're going to get through it. It's totally normal. And the best thing that you can do is just have strategies for how you're going to cope with it. So in month 9, what you want to do is you want to take a lot of notes, write everything down that you can. You want to combat any imposter syndrome. You deserve to be there. They hired you for a reason. It's going to feel like you don't know what you're doing. That's normal. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be forever. And it doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be there. You want to update your social media profiles because, hey, you just got a new job. And most importantly, you really want to be patient with yourself, right? If there's a theme for this whole webinar, it's like be patient with yourself, because this is crazy and what you're doing is hard. But it really is worth it. And the highs are going to be so high. And you're making really big changes that can be totally uncomfortable, as much as they are fun, right? Because there's also so much fun, but it's going to pay off in the long run, and you're really setting yourself up for success in a much longer time frame. So month 9 resources. So 13 common fears for tech beginners and how to overcome them. How to stop second guessing yourself immediately. These are all great blog posts. There's a great blog post that I wrote a long time ago that's one of our more popular blog posts called Confusion is Your Friend. It's all about how, when you're down in this like consciously incompetent, it can feel terrible, but actually you're learning so much valuable stuff. So it's actually a really good place to be. And then 4 ways to help your family understand your tech job. So this will help you in terms of, if you're talking to your mom or dad or your wife or your husband, or your friends even, and explaining to them what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and why you're doing it, even if it seems crazy. All right. So month 10, now you're going to start getting to know what it's like working on a tech team. So get used to working on a tech team. This is everything you've been dreaming of. Congratulations, you've got it. Let's talk about what it's like. So in month 10, you got to learn what it means to work on a tech team and what are all the associated tools. So in month 10, you need to learn project management tools. Every company sort of uses a different piece of software. Sometimes they make their own, but some common ones are Jira, Basecamp, and Trello. You're going to probably have to learn some sort of workflow process. So some common ones are Scrum, which is really just an implementation of Agile, which is a big sort of theory and methodology for working that's very common in the tech industry. Kanban is another sort of Agile workflow process. You are going to need to get used to collaborating and using collaboration tools. So GitHub, Bitbucket, InVision, Google Drive, Dropbox, these are all tools that are used by teams to collaborate. You're going to have to get used to communication tools like Slack and HipChat. So one of the things you're going to learn is that in the tech industry, email is becoming increasingly unpopular. And what people are using instead are these real-time chat applications like Slack and HipChat. And then most importantly, you're going to have to learn how to GIF. Is this working? Oh no, I don't think it's working. Oh, this is terrible. My GIFs aren't working. This is very sad. All right, well, hopefully they'll work in the presentation when you get it. These are supposed to be very funny because they're actually animated. But what you're going to find is that tech teams love GIFs. My tech team loves GIFs. If they could communicate all GIF all the time, I think they would do it. So in month 10, you're going to need to ask a lot of questions. You're going to have to take time to learn the tools. Some of this might have to be after hours. Obviously, that totally sucks, but that's just reality. Again, it's not going to last forever. And do your homework, right? So you don't want to be the person who still doesn't understand how to use the tools after a month or two, right? That's always really annoying when you're on a tech team. So for month 10 resources, most importantly, Giphy.com, or Jiffy, I guess is how it should be. I apologize. You have to learn to GIF, not GIF. That is the technical pronunciation of it. So jiffy.com is where you can get all the GIFs that you'll ever need. There's 27 apps and tools every remote worker needs. It's a great blog post. We've got the ultimate guide to getting things done, which is all about productivity. 13 tips and tricks for working remotely and loving it. And then another one about productivity apps. So need to get stuff done, try these awesome productivity apps. All right, so we've made it to month 11. This is where you need to learn more skills, because this is the tech industry. There's always more to learn. And I have another great GIF for you that, of course, isn't going to work. My GIF beauty has been thwarted. All right, so in month 11, so for developers, I mean, this is where you really have to start learning some more like seriously advanced skills. So you want to start learning things like object-oriented programming. It's very important. Automated testing, even more important. Designers, you got to start to think about stuff like product management, which is really about how do you identify new features that need to be created. How can you participate in that process? Think about things like marketing psychology, right? This is really where you start to do that higher level thinking, not just what it looks like, but like, what is the purpose? How can you as a designer start to influence, the goals of the company? How can you start to help the company make more money, for example, make more sales, better, provide more value to the user? In month 11, you just want to keep really doing the stuff that you've been doing this whole time, right? You want to keep reading and researching. You want to take more classes as needed, and keep attending meetups. So some great resources for month 11, 35 email newsletters. If you haven't already signed up for a bunch of them, maybe it's time to go back and take a look at some more. Some great magazines, online magazines, and blogs for you to read. Smashing Magazine, A List Apart, and of course, skillcrush.com to keep up with like the latest trends and just new stuff that you can learn. All right, guys, we've made it to month 12. Look at us go. And we're only 12 minutes over time. So month 12 is really about rinsing and repeating, right? So it's been 12 months. Now it's time for you to think, like, what's next? Time to set your next goal. And that goal probably at this point is not going to be get a new job or, change careers again, because you just did that, hopefully. But instead, what you're going to want to think about is like, how can you advance in your position? How can you figure out within the context, of where you're working, how you can get that new skill that you want? So maybe you want to learn a new tool, and, there's lots of stuff that there's not necessarily classes for, right? Or the classes aren't really clear, but where you can really take advantage of the resources at your company and the team members and start to learn from them. So, in terms of what you want to learn, it all depends. What is your new goal? Maybe your new goal is like you want to help launch a new feature for the website that you work on. So what does that take? What does that look like? How can you lead that charge? So in month 12, what you want to do is you want to reflect on how far you've come. And really look at look at the amazing things that you've accomplished in the last year. Really take time. Like, I think it's really easy, especially if you're a very goal-oriented person, to kind of like always be sort of, looking towards the future and thinking about what's the next mountain I can climb. And this is definitely something I struggle with. But it's really important to take the opportunity at certain points and really take stock. Wow, look at how far I've come in the last 12 months. Look at how much I've learned. Look at how much I've accomplished, and celebrate that. And then you can go ahead and identify your new goal. And then once you've identified your new goal, you can research what you'll need to learn, and you can basically just start this process all over again, right? But of course, now you're starting it from a more advanced, learned position. So some great resources for month 12 is 5 myths holding you back from learning to code online. We've got 64 online resources to learn to code for free. You've learned HTML, CSS, now what? The secret to learning to code, should you pay to learn to code? Basically just additional resources for learning to code. Okay, so with all of that, we've gone through so much, and I want to make sure to get to a couple more questions for those of you who are still around. So the thing is being a little bit slow to load. Here we go. Oh my gosh, we have 263 comments. That is amazing. Oh, Heather says the Web Designer Depot is a really good resource. That's really good. Okay, so I see a really great question. So before I dive into questions, actually, let me talk a little bit about our Skill Crush Blueprint. So everything we've talked about here in this webinar is really, I think that if you've liked this, what we've been saying, and if it jives with how you think about things, I think that this has been really demonstrative of how we approach learning in the process. And what we really work on is structuring our program so that it's going to provide you with everything that you need to sort of advance through these months and sort of follow this plan. So, and more specifically, what we really focus on, especially, and that's what this slide is really about, is that we are really committed to getting you to the point where you can start freelancing and making money within the first 3 months. So if you sign up for a blueprint, that is our promise to you, is that you are going to be able to start making money. If you, of course, do all the work. We can't do it for you. So we can do everything but do the work for you. But we're really committed to supporting you and being there for you and helping you to get to that point within 3 months. So the way our program works is that every blueprint is a package of between 3 and 4 classes that are designed to teach you the exact skills that you need. So, you know, if you enroll in one of our beginner blueprints, you are going to learn all the skills you need: user experience, web design, HTML and CSS, JavaScript, Git. You know, it obviously depends a little bit on the blueprint that you choose, but it's really designed to take you from I've never coded before in my life or designed anything before in my life into actually having, you know, professional quality practical skills that you can use and make money with. So the way that our program is structured is that it's you know, you have 1 to 2 lessons a day, only on weekdays, of course. And they're really meant to be broken down step by step so that it sort of is very digestible and easy to keep up with. One of the best things about our team is that we have the most amazing instructors. And all of our instructors currently work in the industry in like as doing the skill that they're teaching you. So if you are in the WordPress class, you're going to have WordPress instructors who actively, you know, do build WordPress sites on the regular. And depending on the class that you take, every class comes with at least 2 expert instructors, and a couple of our classes also come with mentors who can mentor you specifically. And the mentors are people who work full-time in the industry. So take advantage of our instructors. They are a gold mine. They are absolutely the best part, I think, about the whole Skill Crush community. One of the things that you can do is you actually get to do video office hours with your instructors. We work really hard to make the tutorials really fun so that you enjoy learning, because, you know, we think that if you enjoy it, you'll probably stick with it. We also work really hard to give you opportunities to really personalize your project so that you can express your passion and can really feel like you are part of the process. Also, you know, in addition to all the resources that you are going to be given today, we have even more resources, more workshops, more, you know, templates and things like that that you can take advantage of in our career platform. And everyone who buys the blueprint gets access to our career platform. And then I mentioned this earlier, but we have an incredibly active alumni community on Slack. There are over 1,000 alumni who are on the platform, active, you know, every single day. There's a million different channels that are geographically based and interest based and all these things. So it's an amazing community. So if you are ready to get started and hit the ground running and start your 12-month plan to get a new job, I would love for you to join us. You can find out more about our blueprints at bit.ly/digital blueprints. And we have worked really hard to make it super affordable for you to enroll in our blueprints. And so you can choose either a 3 payment option, which is only $149 a month for 3 months, or you can do a one-time payment, which is a little bit cheaper, but you have to pay upfront for $399. And last but not least, I know that I promised this at the beginning of the webinar, so we have a very special offer exclusively for webinar attendees. And what it is that if you purchase our WordPress Bootcamp by midnight tonight, you are going to be automatically enrolled also in a free user experience design course. So the WordPress Bootcamp, what it is it's really designed. It is kind of like the way that we think about it. It is the program that we stand behind in terms of being the best way for you, or the best like package that you can take at SkillCrush in terms of setting you up for career success. So what we see, to Caitlin's question earlier in this webinar, what we see is that the students who really succeed tend to follow the exact path that we offer, that you can, like the package that we provide in the WordPress Bootcamp, which is, you can take a look at it. Learn WordPress Bootcamp bonus. So what you get when you enroll in the WordPress Bootcamp is that you do the front-end developer blueprint. Second, you do the WordPress developer blueprint. And third, you do the visual design blueprint. And then what we're offering you here is a special bonus, which is that you will get our SkillCrush 100, the user experience and web design course for free. So what you're getting is, I think it's 11 classes, and you're getting them at a $375 discount, since the class that you're getting for free is $175, plus the $200 discount already on the 3 blueprints. So anyways, this is absolutely our best value. I really encourage you, if you're thinking about doing this, this is really the path that you want to take if you want to maximize your chances of success. So definitely take advantage. But I wanted to make sure to answer a couple questions before we are done. So I see a question from Gloria, and I heard that there's been a couple other questions about this, and she's asking about websites like Wix or Squarespace. Okay, so she's wondering whether those are going to sort of replace HTML and CSS, I guess, is my understanding of her question, and whether it's really relevant to learn HTML and CSS. So the answer to that question is this. So basically, Wix and Squarespace, they are really, I don't know what the right term for it would be, but like they're really consumer applications, which means that they are meant for people who don't have any coding knowledge but want to build their own website. I guess what I'm trying to articulate here is that like they're never going to be used in a very professional context, right? Like SkillCrush would never use one of those websites to build our website. Neither would most larger media companies, tech companies, really anything that is like bigger and more professional. I think that, obviously like maybe some artists and musicians and maybe small businesses might use sites like that. I know that Squarespace does provide some additional customization above and beyond what Wix does. Like I can just tell you that, in terms of sort of like best practices and, what's being used in the industry, like Wix just doesn't even, it's not even part of the conversation. I think Squarespace is slightly better, but the truth of the matter is, to really take advantage of all of those features of Squarespace, you actually have to know how to code. I've actually done some research on that. You have to use a Squarespace API, and you have to know quite a bit of JavaScript, actually. So I don't know. I mean, those are not even, the only people who ever talked to me about Wix and Squarespace are people who are students and considering learning to code. I never hear about them talked about in terms of professional context or among employers, or they're not really a viable alternative. So I would not worry about that. Let's see if we have some other questions. Yes. I see some people saying that they appreciate the phases of learning. Oh, Julie says that she teaches interviewing to kids at business school, and they're definitely great experiences. That's awesome. Yes, I've got someone to agree with me. That's fantastic. Sonia also agrees with that. That's awesome. Lisa, we're definitely sending out a copy of the slides because I know I went through so much material. Allie is asking actually a great question, which is, does overlearning exist? I just realized I'm doing both paths for designers and developers with SkillCrush. You're going to have to launch a new blueprint like in 3 months. So yeah, I mean, I think it's complicated, right? Like, I don't think that, obviously, like, it's not bad to learn lots of things, but I do think that it's only bad, like, sort of overlearning. What I really think that is that I think sometimes when you're a beginner, it's really scary to go and put yourself out there, right? Like if there's a theme of this webinar, it's like, oh crap, it's scary to go and like put yourself out there and, you know, risk failing or, you know, falling on your face or whatever. But so I think that the only thing I would caution you from is don't sort of use learning as a way to avoid actually doing that. Also, I just want to recognize, obviously, we're way over time, so if you have to go, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. I also hear from Hillary that there's a lot of questions about design versus dev paths. Again, as a reminder, I mean, okay, so first of all, let me tell you, you know, something like our WordPress bootcamp is really designed to work for either path. Like a lot of the skills are going to transfer and are going to be applicable whether you're going to be a designer or a developer. The other thing is, like, as a reminder, something I tried to emphasize is like, you don't have to figure out that specialization. Like if you take the front-end developer blueprint, but then decide that you're going to be, then get to like, right. So front-end developer blueprint, you're going to do month 1, 2, 3. And then you don't like, I really don't think that you can make this decision until month 4. And so after you take the front-end developer blueprint, then you can say to yourself, okay, which do I like? Do I want to keep going more in design or more in development? And then you can decide, okay, if you want to do design, maybe you add the visual designer blueprint. If you want to go into development, you do the WordPress development blueprint. Don't put pressure on yourself to answer this question right away, and just trust that, you know, if you sign up for front-end developer blueprint, like any of our beginner blueprints, front-end developer, visual designer, web developer, these are all web designer blueprint. Like all of these skills are going to translate to whatever you go into. So even if you learn some web design, you can still become a developer, and it's still going to be experience and skills that you're glad that you have. So really don't overthink it at this stage. I really don't think that you can make that decision until you have a couple of classes under your belt. So to the extent that you are able, try. Yes. I see Jennifer has this issue, which is that she's only been able to get part-time income, and it's only making her $1.50 after daycare. And she's hoping that being a developer would help. And I think it absolutely can. The other thing you have to remember is, you know, sometimes we do things, right? Like if you go to school, like, or even if you enroll in a class, right? Like you have to kind of spend money before you can make money. And obviously you don't want to do that to a crazy extent. Like, you know, this is why I think like often going to school can be somewhat risky, because you can go into a lot of debt before you're able to make that money back. I don't necessarily advocate that. And that's why we work very hard at SkillCrush to keep our price points really, really affordable. But, you know, often like you do have to invest a little bit before you start to see that return on investment. I think you just have to sort of continue to optimize what you're doing and make sure that you're going to be making, you're making the right moves. Okay. There's so many amazing questions. You guys are incredible. It has been so much fun. I love seeing these comments. We're going to work really, really hard to answer all of the comments and questions that you guys have. I'm sorry that this webinar went over on time so egregiously. But the very last thing I want to do is I want to announce our second blueprint winner. So I'm like, should we do a drum roll? The second winner is named Emily Stadler, and her Instagram handle is Emma Pod. And congratulations, Emily. You are our new winner of a free blueprint. So that is awesome. Can't wait to see what you do with it. And I just want to remind everyone that we're still going to give out one more blueprint. So don't despair. And even if you don't win a blueprint, just remember that we do have a special bonus offer only for webinar attendees. So, and honestly, you know, everyone, you are going to win in the long term just for coming to this webinar and, you know, enacting this plan and investing in yourself. So thank you so much for joining me. It was absolutely my pleasure. And I hope you guys all take care, and I can't wait to meet you in class and hear about what you're doing and help you to reach all those really big goals. So thank you so much.